Welcome to Dublin Courts Confidential. Today, we are diving deep into the dock to really get a look at the true cost of justice here in our city.
Let's kick things off with a number, €275,000. Now that's a pretty hefty figure no matter how you look at it. It's the kind of money that could really change someone's life. But it's the story behind this number that's going to make you wonder what's really going on.
So this was a recent settlement paid out to a Garda detective. But, he wasn't getting this for some heroic act on the job or for cracking a huge case. Nope, this was the end result of a grueling 3-year-long internal investigation pursued by the force's own people.
And what, you ask, was the high crime that justified this massive, years-long probe? A probe that even involved a search of his home. It was a €50 bicycle. Yeah, you heard me right. A simple, run-of-the-mill push bike.
This whole saga, which people started calling Bikegate, is really something else. Here's the story. During the pandemic, a detective gave an unclaimed bike to an elderly man who was totally isolated. The Garda Representative Association even praised it as compassionate community policing. But he didn't fill out the paperwork correctly. And that mistake triggered a 3-year investigation that, in the end, cleared him of everything and finished with this huge payout.
So this just forces you to ask a really critical question. While all that time, money, and energy was being poured into a €50 bike, what in the world was actually happening on the streets of Dublin?
All right, let's take a look at what the courts were actually dealing with. I mean, these are the kinds of violent public order cases that have been coming through the system in just the last week alone.
Now, this isn't a shopping list for a movie set. These are the actual weapons that were brandished in different incidents across Dublin recently. You've got everything from an imitation shotgun used in a feud to a screwdriver in a robbery, and even an XL bully dog that was apparently set on the Gardaí. This is the reality.
And this is where the inconsistencies in sentencing just jump right out at you. You have a guy who waved around a realistic imitation shotgun, and he gets 40 hours of community service. In another case, a man repeatedly punches a taxi driver in the head and gets 2 months in prison. Now, both are serious, violent acts, right? But the outcomes, they feel like they're from different planets.
And this? Let's call it a sentencing lottery. It isn't just happening with public order stuff. We're seeing it even with the most serious crimes. The cases where the victims' lives are changed forever or even ended. Just look at this. On one side, a fatal hit and run. The driver was drunk, speeding, and someone died. The sentence, 12 years. On the other side, a driver blows through a red light and causes catastrophic injuries. We're talking multiple spinal fractures, a collapsed lung. And the sentence? A fully suspended 12 months. I mean, how does the system even begin to justify that kind of difference? And the pattern just keeps going. You've got a guy caught with over €6,000 worth of cocaine, clearly part of the supply chain, and he walks away with a 1-year probation bond. Then, you have a man with a severe drug addiction, a long rap sheet of petty crime, who gets caught with 1 stolen bike, and he's sent to prison for 9 months. Which brings us to a huge core problem. The people who seem to be stuck forever in the system's revolving door. They just show up in court time and time again, and whatever happens there never seems to be enough to actually break the cycle. 279. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's not a case file number. That is the number of prior convictions for one man, Gavin Carroll, who was, you guessed it, back in court again this week. Think about this for a minute. The man is 33 years old, and he has spent 17 of those years, more than half his life, locked up. His latest offense was for handling a stolen bike, something he says he doesn't even remember doing because he was, in his words, out of his head on drugs. His case really makes you ask a fundamental question. Is our system actually designed to punish, or is it supposed to rehabilitate? Because for guys like Gavin, it really doesn't seem to be doing either one very well. So when you start to connect the dots, from the crazy amount of resources wasted on Bikegate, to the seemingly random sentences for street violence, and the complete failure to break that cycle of crime, you have to ask the big question. Are any of these outcomes actually protecting the people who live in this city? A huge breach of trust. That's how a judge described the actions of one Erica Clausen. She was a cafe manager, a trusted employee for 18 years, who was caught red-handed stealing from the till. A very clear, calculated crime. And for that huge breach of trust, which involved stealing €166 over 6 different times, she was ordered to pay €1,000 in compensation, and then her case was adjourned so she could be assessed for community service.
So all of this leaves us with one final and, I think, crucial question. When you look at the messed up priorities, the wild inconsistencies, and the actual outcomes we're seeing day in and day out, what do you think? Is this justice system a real deterrent, or is it just a slap on the wrist?